will talk about, oh, cooking's fine and whatever. And they also talk about limiting the amount of avocado, like to a quarter a day, or,
I know it's a shame, isn't it?
well, I love avocado. It's a shame. I mean, whether it's
Yeah,
true or
it's
not,
not. Yeah, yeah,
like I love eating them.
yeah.
So,
Me too.
and then nuts and seeds. So, so if they're raw, if the nuts and seeds are raw, if the avocados are usually raw, um,
Yeah, that'd
that's
be gross cooking them. Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
I've
So
I've
here's the
seen fried
thing.
avocado, but
Yeah. So
they
I base every recommendation off of results. And
okay.
unfortunately, that's not the case around the board. A lot of time people make their recommendations off of assumptions or off of what someone else they respect said. And when I came to this, it was before the term lifestyle medicine existed. I'd never heard of plant-based doctors. I came at this as a scientist. I didn't know that there was even any movement for nutrition and health. I mean, I'd been sick since I was 16 and I'd taken all the medicines and everything. I didn't know that there was another way. So it wasn't like I sought this out. And when I got better, we figured it out as scientists together to figure out how does nutrition impact cellular repair and cellular function. And it's why when we came out and that we found out there were other plant-based doctors and things, that there was a difference in our protocols. One, the focus on the raw foods, and two, the inclusion of the fats. Like I said, most of them were saying no fats at all. And when I tried to understand where they were coming from, it all came back to some early research that was done where they compared meat-based diets to no-fat plant-based diet. Like, for example, there was a study done, that Dr. Esselstyn talks about, right? Where, he had that group that was in his book where they took people with heart disease and they took all the calories that were from meat and meat fats and they replaced it with just plant foods, and it was all cooked. And there was a dramatic difference in their health and recovery. And so from studies like that, these assumptions grew that all fat was bad. But there was no second step to the study where they said, okay, now let's take the same calories from the animal products and replace it with avocados. Let's do it with chia seeds and see what happens. That was never done. So there were these assumptions made that fats were bad across the board, and then that propagated, and all these other people adopted that ideology, but it wasn't tested. I've tested it. And what I found is that when you add the fats, not only does adherence go up, because man, some creamy avocados makes a big difference, right? And satiety, right? But the results are better. I showed that picture of Pearl. Pearl was supposed to be dead. And in 5 days of hypernourishment, she was getting a half a cup of flax or chia seeds a day in that smoothie. She walked out of that hospital and has been heart disease free ever since. And I've talked to other doctors like Dr. Montgomery here in Houston, and he said he gives green smoothies to his patients in the hospital. And it works better than anything else to get them better from when they've had a heart attack. So it's changing, but there are some folks that just stick to that ideology, but it's not tested. And we've tested it. And I've helped people reverse heart failure faster than most people can on any other type of plan using high fats. There have been some studies since then that have shown it. Like there was a study showing that when they did plant-based, they did meat-based versus plant-based with no fat versus plant-based with avocados and tested cholesterol. And what they found is both the plant-based groups reduced their cholesterol, but the ones eating avocados reduced it by almost twice as much as the no-fat group. So results prove that avocados and other fats like flax and chia seeds actually accelerate people's results in reversing heart disease and reversing autoimmune disease, and don't inhibit them. Now, other fats like saturated fats, those absolutely make people sick. Animal fats, those make people sick. But we have to stop just oversimplifying things. And I think we also have to stop teaching our assumptions and only teach our results, because our assumptions are wrong all the time. We're all people. I assume things that are wrong all the time. That's why I don't teach my assumptions. I teach my results. And at this point, our results are pretty profound. With nuts and seeds in general, they're not bad for you. I eat nuts and seeds as well. When people are trying to fix their omega-3/6 balance, I usually recommend pause on the nuts and seeds while you're just pounding the flax and chia, because nuts and seeds are also a very rich source of omega-6, but they also contain vitamins and minerals and other things in them. So I usually pause them so that we can get the omega-3/6 ratio where we need to be, get the symptoms better. And then, yeah, go ahead and add them back as a snack and you'll be fine for maintenance.
If you wanted to eat nuts, would walnuts be okay to eat with their omega-3 profile?
Well, they are mostly omega-6.
Okay.
So you want your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio to be somewhere around 9:1 to 1:1, right? And the typical American, when they've done these studies back 20 years ago, they were 40:1, but I've seen people as bad as 200:1. So anything we can do to stop the omega-6 from going up any higher is better. And most nuts are somewhere around the 9:1 ratio. So that's why I say they're fine for maintenance. But if we're trying to fix that ratio, 9:1, 6:3 is still putting you in the wrong direction. So that's why I say, pause it if you have a health issue. But if you don't have a health issue and you want to add some walnuts to your life, that's totally fine.
Should we avoid coconuts due to their saturated fat?
During the healing process, yes, but as health maintenance, I don't see a problem with it.
So I'm sure I know where you're going to fall with this one.
Sure.
We have
Maybe I'll surprise you.
I will be surprised if you surprise me. So Brian Clement talks about fruit feeding cancer and says to avoid fruit. Where do you fall on that?
I haven't seen that fruit specifically can cause or promote cancer. I don't think there's anything carcinogenic about fruit, cancer causing. But I don't think that there's anything in it that's necessarily as effective at reducing it as things like vegetables. So I've actually had people in my rapid recovery programs with cancer, and they do my protocol as I teach it, and they can use fruit, but it's not a big part of the diet. We use fruit for flavor, like to make the smoothie taste good. It's a little bit at the top or a little bit in your chia pudding. And we found their results are great. I've had people who've had visible tumors shrinking, prostate markers come down like somebody hit them with a baseball bat down a hill. So it's been other markers like for ovarian cancer, they just drop immediately. And they're still having some fruit, but it's not a big part of the diet. It's a very small amount of the diet. So I don't find that fruit, I don't see anything, there's nothing about a fruit that's carcinogenic. But I think what he's talking about is cancer, because it grows quickly, it incorporates the sugar in your bloodstream, and that could potentially make it grow faster, right? That's the theory. So I don't think there's any harm in going fruit free. When I was healing from lupus, I ate no fruit. And I actually just personally don't like fruit. I know I'm really weird, but I don't like sweet things. I'd rather eat broccoli and guacamole all day than have any fruit. And what we found for most people is if they keep fruit to 25% of their diet, their results are really good. But there are some folks who get stuck in their recovery. They hit a plateau, and when we remove fruit, they actually go faster again. And we don't know the mechanism why. And as I said, I don't teach my assumptions or my thoughts. I do have thoughts about why that might be, but we don't know why that's the case. So there is something about fruit that could slow recovery during the healing process. But once people are in maintenance mode and healthy, we lift up the limiters and you can have unlimited fruit. And so my family members love fruit and they pound the fruit every day in addition to their salads and smoothies. For me, I'm not going to snack on it unless it's like it's a summer and it's a peach or something. But I have not found that it increases people's risk of cancer in any way to have unlimited fruit along with all their veggies and everything. The problem for most people is that they're not getting the nutrients they need from the vegetables. We should be primarily on a vegetable diet with fruit here and there, the other way versus the other way around, which is taught a lot. But I mean, even look at the planet, it's mostly green and then, ooh, there's an apple tree. It's not like fruit is everywhere, right? So we really do get most of our nutrition from things like vegetables and especially minerals. Minerals are in soil. And many people, when they were studying, when we were first doing our research, found that most scientists found that people were mineral deficient. Fruits don't have much minerals because they're far away from the soil, but vegetables are full of it right there deep in the soil and close to the soil. So that's the biggest issue I see is people are not getting enough of the vegetables in. And that's the biggest problem they have for their recovery. If you're eating all those cruciferous vegetables and getting all that sulforaphane to fight that cancer, is fruit make much of a difference? Probably not. But again, that would need to be tested to see which one helps people with cancer faster, right?
Right. So this last question, do people ever follow this protocol and not see results when they have these types of issues?
I've never seen someone follow the protocol correctly and not have benefits for their health. Like that's just, you can't give yourself this level of nourishment and not have it impact you. Because again, this nutrition is specific for cellular repair. And we're big bags of cells that need cellular repair. Sometimes it doesn't come in the order people like. So for example, sometimes someone will say, hey, I've been doing this for a month and my wrist still hurts. And then I run their labs and their cholesterol is down 40 points and their kidney function is up 20 points. I'm like, well, your body decided to start here, right? So there's always benefit. And that's why it's just wonderful to do. It's also anti-aging. Water, omega-3s, and cruciferous vegetables actually accelerate cell function so that you can, and I'm not just talking about the aging of the skin, although that's where you can see it, right? You know, that people often will comment on any of my clients, like, wow, you look really young, right? You can see it in the pictures of my clients, right? I'm almost 50 and I love people get that wrong, but it's also the aging of your organs. So your liver, your kidneys, your heart. So you're going to get benefit by doing it. And that's what's so wonderful about it. And I really believe all people should be doing a hyper-nourishing plant-based diet for their health. Just you basically just always have the antidote in your system. Just for the antiviral effects alone. Oh my gosh, we had the worst flu season we've had in recent history between RSV, COVID, flu virus, all at the same time. Now we got measles, all these, like, keep the antidote in your system that blocks viral replication and keeps your immune system functioning well. There's always going to be a benefit.
Great. Well, that concludes our time. Thank you so much, Dr. Goldner. It was an absolute pleasure once again. If we can unmute the audience.
I bet you it was more.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Goldner.
It was really wonderful. Really appreciate it.